got a hearing too. So I think we've got a quorum. Louis, you want to take us out or you want me to do it? It's up to you, whatever you want to do.
Sure, I can get us started since I'm going to have to run in a little bit, if that's good. So whenever Darlene's ready, we can turn on the live stream.
It's live.
Are we? Oh, yep. Great.
Yep.
All right, well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. We're assembled electronically this morning for the purposes of a few public hearings this morning, as well as a work session, I believe. But before we get started with our work, we'll begin with committee introductions, and we'll start with Chairman Chiazzo.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Beautiful sunny Scarborough this morning. Chris Chiazzo, House District 28, West Scarborough, Maine.
Senator Farron.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Senator Brad Farron. I represent Senate District 3, which is the majority of Somerset County and one town in Kennebec County, the town of Rome. Thanks for being here this morning.
Representative Riley.
Hi, Representative Riley. I represent House District 34, which is part of Westbrook.
Representative McCrate.
Good morning. I'm Jay McCrate, representing Harpswell, West Bath, and Northeast Brunswick in the House.
Okay, Representative Dolloff.
Good morning, Representative Josanne Dolloff from District 115 in the Western Mountains, Roxbury, Rumford, Woodstock, Sumner, and Milton Plantation.
Representative Supika.
Good morning, I'm Laura Supika, and I represent House District 126, a portion of Bangor.
Okay, Representative Wood.
Good morning, I'm Barb Wood, and I represent House District 38, which is the western end of the peninsula in Portland.
Great. And my name's Louis Lucchini. I represent most of Hancock County in the state Senate. With us today, we have our committee analyst, Janet Stocco. And we have a Darlene Simino filling in today to be our committee clerk. So she's coming up from the Transportation Committee. Welcome.
Thank you.
And so before we get started, we'll just go over a few pieces of information for electronic procedures. Just a reminder to everybody that this meeting is currently being live streamed on the committee's YouTube channel. So anyone who's a participant in the meeting via Zoom can be seen and also heard if your microphone is unmuted. People in the Zoom meeting waiting to testify, so that'd be those in the attendees list. You won't be seen or heard until you're called upon to speak. And just as a note, we just like to tell people as we upgrade you from the attendees list to the panelists list, sometimes you lose audio for a second. It might look like you're being dropped, but you'll come into the meeting, which time you can turn on your camera and unmute yourself and you'll be able to testify. As always, the audio for this meeting is being streamed online at the legislature's website. And those who've submitted written testimony, it will be publicly posted on the legislature's website, and that's where all of us can read your testimony. Regarding the chat function of the Zoom meeting, as a reminder, it is for technical assistance only. It's not a place to do any substantive work. We have a few bill groupings today. So for members of the public, we'll remind you that when you're called upon, please state your name, your place of residence, and the organization you represent, if any. So as we kind of advertise, we have several bills on elections this morning. So what we're going to do is merge them into one because there's a great deal of overlap within the topics. And so we have, I'll read us through the list of bills that we'll take first. And instead of the usual 3 minutes, we'll give everybody 4 minutes to testify on any or all bills. If you'd like, just say which bills you're testifying for or against. But we're going to open up a public hearing on 5 bills. So the bills will be LD 1363, an act to amend the laws governing elections, and that's a department bill. LD 1276, an act to ensure all legal voters are able to participate in elections. LD 1165, an act to provide secure drop boxes for absentee ballots. LD 1164, an act to expand the application period for absentee ballot requests and allow early processing of absentee ballots. And LD 1013, an act to provide absentee ballot tracking for Maine voters. Okay, so we'll simultaneously open up all of those, and if it's okay with you, Chairman Chiazzo, I'll turn it over to you and I can kick off the first one, which is the Secretary of State's bill. And then we can move through the sponsor list. That works.
Helps if I unmute. Yeah, no, that's fine with me. Whenever you're ready, you can start.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the Veterans and Legal Affairs Committee, my name is Louis Lucchini. As we all just did our introductions, I represent most of Hancock County in the Senate, and I'm here to present LD 1363, an act to amend the laws governing elections. As stated before and on the bill's jacket, this is a department bill from the Secretary of State's office. And so the Secretary of State will be able to elaborate on all the provisions. Usually they give a big department bill every year, but it does a number of things which I can quickly go over, and the Secretary of State's office can elaborate. It makes some technical clarifications around the definition of ranked choice voting. It provides that a voter with an alternative registration signature statement on file with the municipal registrar may authorize any other Maine registered voter to sign a citizens initiative or people's veto petition for the voter. It replaces the requirement of scanning documentation because that may not be necessary with electronic processes. It changes the requirements for a political party to retain its qualification. This is a similar provision to a bill we heard from Representative Fecto, I think last week or two. But this does so by allowing a party to retain its qualification if its candidate received at least 5% of the total vote in the preceding governor's or presidential election. Changes the date by which a qualified party must notify the Secretary of State if there's a contest for the presidential primary, something that we just enacted last session. And it does a number of things around or regulations around ballot drop boxes, curing defects in absentee ballots, and yeah, a whole bunch more around the absentee balloting process, which I think all the bills grouped today will cover, and Secretary Bellows or Deputy Secretary Flynn, whoever's here, can speak in far greater detail than I can to why the department introduced it. So with that, I'll conclude, Mr. Chairman, and take questions if you have any.
Thank you, Chairman Lucchini. Any questions from the committee for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you. Before we move on to the other bill sponsors, maybe we should bring Julie and Director Flynn in now to let her follow up on that explanation if she likes. So I'll bring Director Flynn, Deputy Director Flynn in. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman Chiazzo and Senator Lucchini, our sponsor, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Veteran and Legal Affairs. I'm Julie Flynn, Deputy Secretary of State. And as expected, I'm testifying in favor of this agency legislation. I have written testimony that won't be completely done until after I finish the hearing, and I'll make sure to get that to you. I just want to ask before we go, this is a fairly lengthy bill, and my testimony would go through section by section if you want me to take the time to do that now, or we can do it, I can hit some high points and then do it in a work session as we've done before. So leave it to the chairs to decide how we want to proceed.
Yeah, I think you can hit the high points if you don't mind, and then we'll have the written testimony as well, and we'll just be prepared at work session for follow-up questions if we need to.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So I have divided the testimony into some things that I think are more routine and technical. Either it's clarifying something that's already in the law, and then the more substantive provisions. So I think Section 2 of the bill, I want to point out because it implements what the voters passed at the 2019 referendum election, which is to allow a method of alternative signatures by people with physical disabilities to be able to sign initiative and people's veto petitions. And so the language we've put in Section 2 of the bill would be that legislative authorization for how they would sign. And it's similar to what already is in statute for candidates to sign, people with disabilities to sign candidate petitions and clean election forms. We are in Section 4 amending the qualification provisions for a party who has qualified to retain their status. And we're adding back a section that was in the law previously to allow them to retain the status if the party's candidate for governor or president receives at least 5% of the votes cast for that candidate in the last preceding gubernatorial or presidential election. And additionally, we're making a small change to the current provision or alternate method of retaining their qualification, which is to have, currently it requires them to have 10,000 people enrolled in their party and voting in an election. And this drops the requirement for voting in the election and proposes that they just have 10,000 registrants by election day. And this is important because the towns are allowed 9 business weeks after the election or until mid to late January to do their voter history. So we wouldn't know until that late a period of time whether there were enough people enrolled in the party that actually voted. So this does simplify it, but keeps at least a threshold for registration. The next one I'm going to hit is that in Section 21 of the bill, when people show up at the clerk's office to vote an absentee ballot in the presence of the clerk, currently they just give their name and they're authorized in the central voter registration system and given a ballot. We are adding a provision that they would give their name and date of birth and residence address when they check in. There is no application for these voters. It's just an oral application, and adding this requirement would make it similar to what happens when a voter makes a telephone request so that the clerk can confirm that they're putting the ballot in for the correct voter. We did have some errors in 2020 that were discovered, but where they had initially put the ballot in for the wrong voter, like a father instead of a son, or someone else with the same name, but it wasn't the correct voter. So this we believe would help resolve that. And then the two provisions that I think are really substantive, I'd like to spend a second going over. One of them is the implementation in statute of our absentee ballot drop box procedures that we proposed and implemented in 2020. And this would allow a municipality to have a drop box that meets the requirements of the law, either on or adjacent to the municipal office, or alternatively at a location that is separate from the municipal office if that is where the town is conducting absentee voting before the election. And there are several towns who do that. They don't have a big enough office and they go and they conduct absentee voting. So it would allow them to have one at either of those locations. And then additionally, if they wanted to have more than one that's authorized, they could apply to the Secretary of State at least 90 days before the election and give us the specifications of where the drop box is and that it meets the requirements. And we would review that and approve or deny it and make sure that they meet all the physical security requirements that are otherwise outlined in the bill. It wouldn't require them to have more than one, but it would allow them an opportunity to be approved for one. Some of the security requirements, and again, these are very similar to what we implemented in 2020, but we felt for transparency and just to make it official is to put those into the statute. It has to be secured so that somebody can't just pick up and take it away. It has to be secured, the drop box or the slot or the chute where somebody deposits their ballot. It has to be in such a way that a voter somebody else can't reach down in and remove any ballots or otherwise tamper with ballots. But it does have to have a way for the clerk or the clerk's designees to open the box and retrieve the ballots in an authorized manner. When it's being used during the 3 month, the month or so before the election, when ballots are available and can be returned, it has to be monitored periodically. Might be with a surveillance camera, but it could also be with law enforcement or municipal office personnel. They need to check on it and just make sure that nothing's happened to it in the interim. There has to be a mechanism to close and lock the deposit chute or slot so that when it's 8 p.m. on election day, it can be closed and locked and prevent somebody from putting in a ballot that cannot be accepted after 8 p.m. on election day. And there need to be some restrictions on use so that it's not just a general drop box for any town business. It has to be labeled so that it's only for the absentee ballots. We have slightly increased the availability of who can retrieve ballots from the box. In our 2020 procedures, it was the clerk or the clerk's designee in teams of 2. Under this provision, we would allow the clerk, which means the clerk, any deputy clerks or assistant clerks, to retrieve the ballots by themselves. They're sworn, staff of the clerk's office, or to have a team of 2 designees, and that would have to go together to retrieve the ballots. And now this would require there to be a log form that we design in the Secretary of State's office and provide to the municipalities, where it shows the date and time that the ballots were retrieved and the initials or signature of the person or persons who retrieved them. And again, the box would have to be closed and locked at 8 p.m. on election night. And then the other sections that are substantive are sections 22 through 27, which adopt in statute the cure defects for curing defects on absentee ballots that, again, we implemented quite successfully in 2020, but we, again, for transparency and to make sure that clerks are all following the same procedures, we would like to adopt these into law. So we're implementing a 2-day cure or a hold process or period where the clerk would try to contact the voter at the phone number or email if provided on the absentee envelope. So they could call the voter and say, is this your signature? Did you provide, did you fill out this ballot? And there's procedures that are defined for how they would do that. If it is cured in the 2-day period, then the clerk's going to enter that into the CVR as being a ballot that's accepted or possibly accepted and challenged if certain situations occur. And after the 2-day hold period, if it isn't cured, they would make a note on the envelope. They wouldn't hold it any longer. They would enter it in CVR as rejected, but now that's going to go in the absentee ballot tracking process that we use. And then the voter might see it at that point. Maybe they didn't get the email or they didn't notice the email, and now they see on the tracking system their ballot was rejected. That would allow them to still come back and follow the cure procedures up till 8 p.m. on election day. And if it's cured, it can be counted or at least counted as a challenge ballot. Section 24 really is the meat of this. It talks about how ballots can be cured during certain defects. If there's a mismatched voter signature, if you get a hold of the voter, you're going to be able to cast it without challenging it. If you don't get a hold of the voter, you can cast it as a challenge ballot, because we don't want someone to be disenfranchised because they think the signature might not match when it actually is the signature of the voter. If there's a missing signature, if you can get a hold of the voter, they can at least authorize you to cast it as a challenge ballot, or they can come in, sign the envelope, put it in a new envelope and sign it. Or if they don't want to do that, you can send them a new ballot, and hopefully that will get back before Election Day and will be able to be cast. And then if there's a missing signature for the aide or the witnesses, if the ballot was assisted or delivered by a third person and there need to be witnesses, then again, can be cured by a phone call, at least to the point of authorizing a challenge ballot, or the witnesses or aide could come in and sign the envelope, or the voter could choose to have a new ballot sent to them if there's plenty of time before the election. And then again, we've specified all the procedures for how to designate that a duplicate ballot was issued, and if a ballot can't be accepted, how it's designated on the envelope that it was rejected and how it would be entered into the CBR. So there's a lot of material there. And I think if we get the testimony to you in writing and you look at it before the work session, I'll be prepared to go through any sections that need a little more amplification, or answer any questions you may have now.
Perfect. Thank you, Director Flynn. Any questions from the committee? I just had a quick one. You mentioned the ballot boxes.
Yes.
Is there any stipulation of how frequently they need to be emptied, or is it just at the discretion of the clerk?
There is a requirement that it be emptied at least once on the days when the clerk's office is open, and more often as necessary, depending on the volume. So I think, and this will be something the clerks will have to determine, but the last thing we want is for the ballot box to be stuffed so full that somebody could just easily reach in because the envelopes are sticking out of the slot.
Right.
But we have such a size difference. We do have some smaller communities that got ballot drop boxes and are using them. And so we don't want to be overly prescriptive, but we want to have the security of the box be paramount.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Senator Farron.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chair. Julie, thanks for being here. As you know, and I'm sure you're probably providing some testimony on some of the other bills as well. But the chair just mentioned about drop boxes. Have you had a chance to look at these other bills? Is there overlap between some of these other bills that we're seeing and what the department bill is? And are you going to help us navigate that a little bit this morning as we see some of the testimony on that stuff?
I think Secretary Bellows is going to be taking the role on testifying on the other bills. I believe there is some overlap on the ballot drop boxes. One bill only authorizes us to provide them. So I think that bill doesn't have any overlap. I mean, it just sort of makes it clear we can provide them. And we are looking at that with our election security money that we have, the federal grant money that is an authorized use. So we may be supplying it to, any other towns who wish to do it. I think there is one that goes into more detail, and they were going to adopt our wording into, an amendment. So I think it's up to the committee how they want to decide that, if they want to strip it out of our bill and pass the other bill, or what they want to do, what you want to do. Yep.
Thank you, Senator Farron. Any other questions for Director Flynn? All right, seeing none, thank you, Julie, for setting that up for us. We appreciate that. Thanks for
Thank
joining
you.
us this morning.
I'll get busy on my testimony.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Next up, we'll bring in Representative Roberts. She is the lead sponsor for 1276. So bring in, give her a second to come in and get acclimated. Closest thing we have to time travel.
Is that quick enough?
That was perfect, Representative Roberts. Thank you. The floor is yours when you are ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Senator Lucchini, Representative Chiazzo, distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. I am Tiffany Roberts, and I represent House District 6, which is comprised of the majority of North Berwick and South Berwick. I'm here today to present LD 1276, an act to ensure all legal voters are able to participate in elections. To go off script from my testimony, this is the bill that Director Flynn had referenced that is pulled from their bill with their language. So if the committee chooses to do this separately, they have the opportunity to do that. So that being said, previous to the COVID-19 pandemic, voters were able to vote in person and drop off their absentee ballots at their municipal offices, in addition to mailing in their absentee ballots before Election Day. This past election, some municipal offices expanded voting accessibility by installing drop boxes and drop slots. This opportunity allowed voters to cast their ballots safely without the need to interact with municipal officers or other officials or other voters. In addition to helping reduce prospective COVID-19 outbreaks, access to drop boxes and drop slots has made our voting process a more equitable one, and their continued use will ensure the same opportunities going forward. LD 1276 sets the standard for use of Dropbox and Dropbox slots in municipal settings and improves the ease of voting. Please note that this bill is not a mandate that the Dropbox be used by municipalities, but rather sets some parameters for municipalities to use for those who choose to use them. In consultation with the Maine Department of the Secretary of State, I urge this committee to consider the amended comprehensive language included below. I put it right in my testimony to make it easier for you. And the amended language is highlighted in yellow, provides greater detail to the municipalities, helps ensure all voters of varying physical ability can vote by absentee ballot if they choose to do so. I want to thank the committee very much for your time. I'll make it short and sweet. I know you have a lot to hear, but I'm happy to answer any questions if the committee has any.
Thank you, Representative Roberts. Any questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you for introducing the bill this morning. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Always good to see you.
You as well.
Next, we'll bring in Representative Bailey. Bring him in as a panelist. He is the proud sponsor of 3 of these bills, 1013, 1164, and 1165. So apologies, Representative Bailey. You've got the lion's share of the testimony here this morning, but you have as much time as you need. So you can begin when you like, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll be relatively brief. I figured on this one I would divide my bills into 3 separate bills. We try it this way instead of putting everything in one. We'll see how it goes. Thank you, Senator Lucchini, Representative Chiazzo, and distinguished members of the Veterans and Legal Affairs Committee. I appreciate the opportunity to present LDs 1013, 1164, and 1165 for your consideration. I owe you guys a lot of candy. These 3 bills seek to codify several of the successfully implemented and voter praise changes that were made to Maine's elections in 2020. An act to provide absentee ballot tracking for Maine voters, LD 1013. Maine's former Secretary of State, Matt Dunlap, instituted online ballot tracking for absentee voters during the 2020 elections, as you know, and his office did so smoothly and successfully. While Secretary Bellows has indicated that she intends to continue this practice, there's no requirement in statute for the Secretary of State to provide this reporting and transparency to ensure it continues. To avoid a situation where a future Secretary of State might discontinue this practice at their discretion, causing great confusion and concern among voters who have come to rely on it, LD 1013 seeks to codify this practice and require that it be provided on an ongoing basis to voters. My sincere thanks to Representative Corey, McCray, Riley, Subisa, Senators Farron, and Lucchini for co-sponsoring this bill. LD 1164, an act to expand the application period for absentee ballot request and allow early processing of absentee ballots. As you know, LD 102 was passed by the legislature and signed into law by Governor Mills in March. It addressed the same issue of early processing that is included in this bill. Thus, those portions within LD 1164 can be struck. The other issue in LD 1164 that remains unaddressed, however, is the application period for requesting absentee ballots, to the best of my knowledge. I understand I asked for your action on this issue too. LD 1164 seeks to remove the prohibition against issuing absentee ballots to any voters whose applications are received within 3 days of the election, thus allowing voters to request and vote an absentee ballot within this window. This accommodation was made during the 2020 elections, and many voters could very well anticipate that it will continue in the future. Furthermore, I would reference you to a bill by Speaker Fecto that is also being considered by your committee, LD 148, that would adopt ongoing absentee voting. And it's relevant here because the adoption of this practice would diminish concerns by some election administrators, I think, about the burdensome nature of this particular requirement of allowing absentee voting within that 3-day window. As more voters receive their ballots by mail, we can anticipate that fewer voters will need to request absentee ballots from their clerk, including within the 3-day window prior to the office, where they might try to go down to the town hall and get that ballot. The provisions within LD 1164 that seek to allow absentee ballot requests within the 3-day window prior to the election day were again implemented smoothly and successfully in the 2020 elections. I'm only seeking to continue this practice and ensure that no eligible voters are denied full access to the ballot. My sincere thanks to Representatives Berry, Crafts, Geer, Hassenfuss, Lookner, O'Neill, Osher, and Sheehan for co-sponsoring this bill. And then finally, LD 1165, an act to provide secure drop boxes for absentee ballots, which I understand the Secretary of State's bill also addresses. My intention here is to seek to expand efforts made during the 2020 election to provide drop boxes to municipalities for the convenient drop off of completed absentee ballots by Maine voters. Current law authorizes voters to return a voted absentee ballot by depositing that ballot into a secure drop box accessible by only the municipal clerk, as you fully well know. This bill would authorize the Secretary of State to provide to each municipality secure drop boxes that are accessible by only the municipal clerk for depositing those voted ballots. Again, this bill seeks to codify a practice that was smoothly and successfully implemented during the 2020 elections. And I appreciate Representative Caiazzo, McCray, Riley, Subisa, and Tuttle for their co-sponsorship of this bill. These 3 bills seek to improve access and participation and promote transparency and integrity in Maine's elections. I ask that the committee please support these important bills, whether through the individual legislation that I introduced or through the Secretary of State's comprehensive bill. I appreciate very much your consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have now or at work session.
Thank you, Representative Bailey, and thank you for your flexibility. I know we threw a lot at you with all 3 bills at once, so thank you for that, for rolling with that. Any questions from the committee? All right, seeing none. Thank you, sir, for the introductions.
Thank you.
I do not see any co-sponsors on the list. I don't know if anybody on the committee who is a co-sponsor wishes to speak. If so, raise your virtual hand. If not, then we will move on to the public hearing side of things. Let's see. So they're kind of jumbled up because some are in favor of one bill or another, but then neither or. So I'll just go in the order that they're printed on the list here. So we'll bring in Patty Du Bois first from the Maine Town and Clerks Association, and she'll be followed by Secretary Bellows. Good morning, Patty.
How are you?
Good, good. So all 3 bills, or excuse me, all 5 bills, speak to whichever ones you like, or one in particular. It's entirely up to you.
Thank you, Representative Piazzo. and Senator Lucchini and members of the Veteran and Legal Affairs Committee. My name is Patty Dubois. I represent the Maine Townsend City Clerks Association. I'm a resident of Winslow, Maine. Regarding LD 1363, clerks are in support of this legislation. As you know, we have a very diverse group of municipalities that we represent. We try to reflect the views of everyone. Regarding drop boxes, some flexibility on election day would be helpful, not requiring clerks to add staffing to monitor or retrieve ballots at a location other than the polls on election day. Perhaps there could be language to allow for signage on drop boxes directing voters as to where to drop ballots on election day for those smaller communities that can't be in multiple locations. Regarding multiple drop boxes, we are opposed to language that would allow municipalities to obtain and deploy additional drop boxes. This language appears somewhat benign in that it's not a mandate, but many municipal clerks could be politically pressured to install drop boxes in certain wards or districts or neighborhoods or on college campuses. Each municipality should be limited to one drop box. The concept of multiple drop boxes in a voting jurisdiction is common in states where elections are conducted by county rather than by municipality. Of course, multiple drop boxes are necessary there at the county level since it's a large geographic area. And of course, Maine conducts elections at the local level here. Regarding curing defects, a missing voter signature, municipal clerks suggested that the ballot be accepted and not challenged if the clerk verifies with the voter that they requested, voted, and returned the absentee ballot, but failed to sign the backside of the envelope. And regarding curing defects, accepting a cured ballot, when a defect is cured, the municipal clerks make a notation on the envelope and change the ballot from rejected to accepted in CVR. Many municipalities batch their returned ballots each day and finalize a lot of accepted ballots with a report in CVR. It would be preferable if defective ballots that are subsequently cured be allowed to be entered into CVR with the cure date rather than the return date. Regarding LD 1276, we are in support of this bill. This bill clearly limits the number of drop boxes to one per municipality, which is preferred by municipal clerks. And regarding LD 1165, we are neither for nor against this bill, but it does state that only the municipal clerk may have access to the drop box, and clerks would suggest language to allow a designee to have access. And regarding LD 1164, we are opposed to this bill. There are actually three main parts of this bill, which repeals the special circumstances absentee ballot provisions. Repealing this provision would guarantee disenfranchisement of all voters who find that an unexpected situation prevents them from voting at the polls on election day, since passage of this bill would leave no allowable provision in law to vote by absentee ballot on election day. Although not all clerks embrace the special circumstances provision, most agree that it provides a safety net when unexpected situations come up. Extending the absentee ballot processing period from the 4th day to the 7th day, I believe this has been passed in prior legislation this session. And extending the deadline to request an absentee ballot to 5 p.m. on the day before election day. We are opposed to this legislation, as we've mentioned in other testimony, that clerks really need the Friday and the Monday before election day to prepare for early processing of absentee ballots, and then also to prepare for election day setup. So we're strongly opposed to taking away that deadline. When we compare absentee voting across the country, we have robust absentee voting laws. We're trying to figure out what problems this bill is trying to solve. We would be slightly increasing convenience to the voters, but it would significantly impact the ability for municipal clerks, which are the election experts in the state, to effectively staff, organize, and manage the entire voting process. So we are opposed to that bill. Regarding LD 1013, in November 2020, there was a rollout of an online absentee ballot tracking system that allowed voters to track their ballots at their convenience. It eliminated a great number of calls to municipal clerks. It was very well received. And this program does help to build voter confidence. So clerks do support that bill. So I hope I I didn't see your phone come up, so I guess I met the timeline requirement. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
You were a little over, but we asked you to do a lot in a little bit of time, so I appreciate that. Any questions for Mr. Boyce from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for that very concise testimony. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
You too. Next up, we have Secretary of State, Shanna Bellows. Good morning, Madam Secretary.
Good morning. Thank you, Representative Chiazzo, distinguished members of the Veteran and Legal Affairs Committee. I am Secretary of State Shanna Bellows, and I am providing testimony today in favor of LD 1013, LD 1165, and LD 1276, as well as neither for nor against LD 1164. No matter where we come from or who we are, all of us are here today because we believe that for democracy to work, it must include all of us. Everyone should have the freedom to vote equally, to ensure that our elections truly reflect the will of the people. That's what these bills are about. Maine can be very proud of the integrity, security, and fairness of our elections in 2020. In 2020, we ranked 3rd in the country in voter participation, with more than 75% of our eligible voters casting a ballot in the presidential election. About 62% of Mainers cast an absentee ballot either in person, via the mail, or utilizing absentee ballot drop boxes. That's why this legislation is so important. Maine is unique, as you have heard, in that our elections are administered at the municipal level rather than the county level. And we're so incredibly lucky to have experienced and talented staff at the state level like Deputy Secretary Julie Flynn and the municipal clerks in more than 500 municipalities who administer our elections. They stepped up during the pandemic and they delivered. LD 1165 and LD 1276, like our agency bill, would codify an incredibly important reform seen in 2020, that of the absentee ballot drop boxes. Keep in mind, the ballot boxes are intended to provide a secure, no-touch method of returning a ballot, whether during or after business hours, up through and including 8 p.m. on election day. We would not be supportive of the towns locking their boxes down before 8 p.m. on election day. We can understand the desire of some municipalities to have only one drop box. We also recognize that in some larger municipalities, especially those with college campuses, more than one drop box might be necessary. LD 1013 would make permanent the innovation of online ballot tracking so that the voter can monitor the status of their ballot once submitted through the mail, whether that's or to a drop box, or we think that's very important in voter confidence and should be preserved as a permanent reform. We're happy to work with the committee to strengthen Maine's voting rights. We should be really proud that these proposals seek to expand voter participation and strengthen our election laws to protect the freedom to vote for all Mainers. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Bellows. Any questions for the Secretary while we have her here? All right, seeing none, thank you very much for your time this morning and your flexibility with us as we combine a bunch of bills together. Thank you. Next on the list, we have Will Hayward from the League of Women Voters. We'll bring Will in.
Am I in?
You are in, sir, and welcome. And you've heard the spiel, so feel free to begin when you are ready, sir.
Will do, and I thank the committee for not making me pop up 5 separate times. So I'll try to keep this as brief as I can. Morning, Senator Lucchini, Representative Chiazzo, and members of the committee. My name is Will Hayward. I'm here today as the Advocacy Program Coordinator for the League of Women Voters of Maine. I'll try to speak briefly as to the League's stances on these bills in the order that they've been presented. And I'll also mention we've submitted separate written testimony on nearly all of these bills separately for the committee to review. First off, we support LD 1363. I'll focus briefly on the 2 parts of LD 1363, which Julie Flynn went into detail on as well. The first is drop boxes. First, Section 13 of the bill addresses drop boxes as a way to enhance options for voter to deliver their ballot. Current law refers to the municipality's option of having a drop box, but does not provide much guidance and also seems to limit each municipality to one drop box. Section 13 of the bill specifies many protective measures designed to ensure the integrity of the chain of custody of ballots between the time they leave the voters' hands to when they are opened and counted in municipal offices. We welcome these measures, such as the requirement to securely affix the drop box, specification of signage for voters, guidance on how to remove ballots for processing, and the details about the process for locking the drop box upon the close of polls. Maine deployed scores of drop boxes in the 2020 elections, and we received no reports of problems with the process of using drop boxes or with the chain of custody. What we learned this year should be incorporated into law so that future elections go just as smoothly. The main question we received in 2020 was regarding the location of drop boxes. Having a drop box at the municipal office makes sense, but in many towns, having one or more additional drop boxes in another part of town would also enhance convenience for voters. LD 1363 allows for these additional drop boxes, but only with the approval of the Secretary of State. We believe that such approval should be readily granted, provided the municipality adheres to the protections in this provision, and also provided that additional drop boxes are located in a way to benefit as many voters as possible and as equitably as possible. Two other very brief points. First, standardization of design might be valuable for drop boxes over the long term. And also, we think it would be helpful to publicize the locations of all drop boxes, but it must be done in a way to ensure that voters do not use a box outside their own municipality. Now, on the so-called signature cure provisions, we support these provisions as well. They enhance the ability of voters to fix envelope errors that would otherwise cause their ballots to be rejected. They only apply to absentee ballots and to errors on the information written by the voter on the outside of the envelope. We believe that every aspect of the election system should be designed to enhance the right to vote, to ensure the maximum effective participation by registered voters, consistent with the seriousness of voting in our democracy and the obligation to take due care. We also respect that there are limits on the resources of local officials. But considering these factors, one possible technical deficiency should be brought to the attention of the voter, who should be given a reasonable chance to fix the problems before their ballot is rejected and their vote nullified. This cure provision was provided to municipal election officials before the 2020 election, and it was a significant step forward, and we support writing this provision into law. That said, we understand that town clerks and staff already do a tremendous service by going out of their way to fix problems, and we should all appreciate that effort. Now on LD 1276, we are neither for nor against the legislation as drafted. As previously discussed, to be most helpful in the voting process and to help voters provide the confidence and security of that process, drop boxes need to be clearly and consistently labeled, locked and accessible only to municipal clerk or designees. And we are glad that these provisions are in LD 1276. However, LD 1276 as initially drafted limits drop box locations to a single location at the municipal office, while the League of Women Voters in Maine supports making drop boxes available in more than one location where appropriate. We're glad to see the proposed amendment bears similarity to Dropbox language in LD 1363 that we support. And so for these reasons, the League of Women Voters in Maine is neither for nor against on the bill as drafted, but we would support it as amended. On LD 1013, online absentee ballot tracking is an essential voter service, and we support this legislation. Voters want and need to know when their absentee ballots have been mailed out to them, when their completed ballots have been received and accepted by the town clerk, and whether there are any problems at any stage of the process. Ballot tracking systems reassure voters that their vote really did count. Online ballot tracking should be a part of a much needed modernization of Maine's voter services, with the most important part of this being the passage of LD 1126 to establish online voter registration. And finally, we are neither for nor against on LD 1164, which is very similar to LD 208, which we have previously testified on, eliminating the closed period. As we shared at that time, we support maintaining the closed period for the day prior to the election and on election day to allow clerks to prepare for and conduct their election day duties. We support opening up Friday to absentee balloting, as this would increase access to voting precisely at the time when the largest amount of voters wish to vote and reduce election day lines, as the League observed this past November. This alternative is in a forthcoming bill sponsored by Representative McCrate. These bills all take a serious look at the generally very successful changes made in 2020, and we applaud all the sponsors for bringing these bills forward for the committee's consideration. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on these bills. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Hayward. Any questions from the committee? All right, seeing none. Thank you for your flexibility this morning. And,
thank you.
We'll see you on a couple other bills coming up here.
Mm-hmm. Take care.
All right, well, that concludes the list of pre-registered speakers. If there's anybody in the attendee room who wishes to speak on either 1013, 1164, 1165, 1276, or 1363, please raise your virtual hand and we will promote you in. Okay, seeing none, then we will close the public hearings on LD 1013, 1164, 1165, 1276, and 1363. Up next, we have two more elections bills, but these were a little bit different, so we didn't combine them with the previous ones. We'll open the public hearing for LD 1354, which is, bear with me for a second here. 1354 is a resolve to study the establishment of a system of voting by mail. And for 1354, that is by Senator Miramont, who I do not see in the attendee lists. So perhaps, Darlene, you can reach out and see if you can find Senator Miramont somewhere for us. That would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
And in lieu of that, let me see, 14. We also have LD 1496, which is by Representative Kinney, which is an act to establish a board of canvassers for certifying election results. So Representative Kinney, if you are present and ready, we can start the public hearing on LD 1496 first. They're both scheduled for 11. So I'm not sure if you can hear me, but if you can, you're welcome to jump on and kick us off. So I see her screen, but I see her muted and her video is off. So why don't we take a quick break and I'll see if I can get reach Representative Kinney. And the first one that comes in will get to present their bill. So we'll be in recess for 5 minutes or so.
Senator Marymount, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Hi.
so they went on a quick break while we were waiting to find you and the next sponsor. Just thought I'd let you know.
Thanks. It's been one of those days in labor. We couldn't find any of the sponsors for the first 3 bills, so we did the same thing.
It's getting kind of crazy. It's that time of year.
And
Anyway,
then you can, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I said, then you confused me. I'm getting a call from transportation. It's like, what the heck?
I bet it did, but you responded. So that
You
was
bet.
good.
Always will to you.
It was good because I called Rose. I'm like, I need his phone numbers really quick. I know I can find him. Then I called Marine Resources thinking that you might be down there. Totally forgot about you were on labor too. She's like, no, we're doing IF&W. I'm like, okay, bye, gotta go. Well, because my other line was ringing and it was you. So
Oh,
a little
man.
crazy. So,
Yep.
yep. All right, I'm gonna put you back on mute till they come back, but
Okay. I'll be
okay,
here.
thanks. Oh, and the
All
house
right,
chair is here.
folks, welcome back. I see we
Senator
have Senator
Bramron is here.
Marymount with us. Thank you, Senator. I know you've been in there for a little bit. We're just trying to track everybody else down as well. So get a couple more people to turn their videos back on. Don't need a full caucus, but I know there's still a few people present. All right, so Senator Marymount, if you want to kick off 1354 when you are ready, sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And you do hear me?
Yeah, we just can't see you.
Yeah, I don't have my, I mean, things should be normal, but. in
Hold
any
on, no,
case-
I know why.
Okay.
I got to move you to panelist.
Are you, I don't see you on mute, Senator. Looks like we just, there he is.
There he is.
Hey, things are getting back to normal here.
Good morning, Senator. Welcome.
Good morning. So thank you, Representative Chiazzo, distinguished members of.
Senator Marymount, we cannot hear you for some reason. It doesn't look like you're muted, though.
I can hear him.
Yeah, I can too.
I'll get closer and yell. Sorry for everyone who can hear me already. Anyway.
Still nothing.
Nothing for Representative Chiazzo, but everyone else can hear.
I can.
Can they hear you, Darlene? Can he hear you?
I don't know. Can you guys hear me?
Okay. My bad. I had my speaker on mute while I was talking. My apologies.
No problem. You can't make mistakes. You're the chair.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
All right. Hello, Representative Chiazzo, distinguished members of Veterans and Legal Affairs. I'm Dave Marymount, and I represent Senate District 12, which is Knox County, except for the town of Washington. And the county seat is Rockland, just for reference. And I'm here to present LD 1354, resolved to study the establishment of a system of voting by mail. I did have a bill, but this seemed like one of those that could use some work to combine the systems that are already in place. So I've been studying the system developed in Oregon since its beginning. I met with and talked to several of their legislators about the challenges in establishing vote by mail and what to avoid. Since then, other states such as Washington and Colorado have also added this to the methods available for voters. This has increased voter participation and is more in line with the convenience that many voters enjoyed during the recent presidential election. Because I come at this from a different direction than others, including our Secretary of State, it seemed best to involve her office in developing the rules for Maine. Secretary Bellows has stated her willingness to find the best method for Maine, and this bill gives time for that process with a report back to this committee. The bill also includes a list of issues to be considered during the discussion so as to be thorough and to minimize confusion and objections. And of course, voter participation is just the most important thing I can think of. Other than that, having everyone's vote actually count. But we talked about that already. So thank you for consideration, and I'm glad to answer any questions if I can.
Thank you, Senator Marymount, and apologies for the technical issues on the front end. So we're getting there. We'll get there just in time to go back live. It'll be perfect. Any questions for the senator? Seeing none. Thank you, sir, for introducing the bill.
Thanks very much.
So we have, we're back to a normal public hearing, so everybody will have 3 minutes. We'll start with those testifying in favor of the bill, and we'll start with Deputy Secretary Bautista. We'll bring in the Deputy Secretary.
Good morning.
Good morning, Deputy Secretary. How are you?
Good. How are you? I hope everyone's well this morning. Representative, thank you for having me. Representative Chiazzo and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. My name is Joanne Bautista, and I am the Deputy Secretary of State Policy Advisor. I'm speaking today in support of LD 1354, which requests that the Secretary of State's office conduct a study on vote by mail. Our office has worked with advocates and Senator Mearmont to draft an amendment, which you all should have. The Department of Secretary of State is committed to researching the feasibility of implementing an automatic vote by mail process, analyzing relevant laws and issues, and identifying barriers to implementation in Maine. And for clarification, automatic vote by mail would differ from our current system, and that it would require the state to automatically send a ballot to all eligible voters. And this would just simply be creating another option for eligible voters to cast their ballot. Currently, there are approximately 21 states that allow some form of vote by mail. Of those 21 states, 5 states, including Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, Utah, and Washington, conduct all of their elections by mail. And following the 2020 presidential election, Colorado was second in the country for voter participation. As Secretary Bellows mentioned earlier, Maine was third. But as a leader in election processes and policy, we can do better. The study will allow us to analyze and review all aspects of automatic vote by mail so that we can be deliberate and thoughtful about considering implementation in our great state. For the reasons I just stated, we support this bill. I thank you for your time, and I would be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Secretary. I didn't see the amendment posted, so is that something that's coming from your office?
Yes, and I apologize that you don't have it. I can work with my colleague to make sure that you guys get it as soon as possible. It essentially simplifies what Senator Mearmont initially submitted.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions for the Deputy Secretary? Representative Corey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here. Of the states that allow sort of vote by mail or do vote by mail, those 5 states, Colorado, Utah, Washington, is it Hawaii and California?
And Oregon.
And Oregon. Of those states, how many of them are enrolled in ERIC, like the system that allows sort of us to cross-check, our voter list with other states? This is a huge concern of mine. Earlier this session, I brought up a sister of mine that has languished on Maine's voter rolls for 20 years, and obviously she would be mailed, a ballot, and that would be floating around out there. And I think that's where the really big concern is just the level at which Maine has, kept their voter lists, up to date. So I think without that, I don't know how I could personally support a vote by mail law.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I don't have that information off the top of my head right now, but the research that would go into the study, that could be included in the research that's done.
Follow up, Representative Corey.
I'm sorry. So I'm trying to figure out then how the Secretary of State's office can support this bill without knowing, whether or not these other states are enrolled in a system that keeps their voting lists clean. Obviously ours isn't. So I'm trying to understand how we can support a bill. Do you know what I mean? That's in favor of, sending ballots to voters that aren't here, that don't live in Maine any longer. But
could I follow up to that, Representative Chiazzo?
Yeah.
So we are considering implementing automatic vote by mail. And so this study would allow us to research all of these states that are already doing this process to figure out whether or not it would make sense to do the same thing here in Maine.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Deputy Secretary. Any other questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you for your testimony this morning.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Robert Booth of Portland, who's also speaking in favor. So, Mr. Booth, there you are, sir. When you are ready, you have the floor.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you to the chairs and also the entire committee for the opportunity to speak with you today. As you said, I'm Robert Booth. I live in Portland, Maine, and I am here to support LD 1354, the resolve to study the establishment of a system of voting by mail, both as a Mainer. I'm also speaking on behalf of Represent Us, their national field director. Represent Us is a national nonpartisan organization that is focused on making our political system more fair and accessible. Before I begin with my testimony, I do know that information off the top of my head, Representative Corey. Hawaii is the only state of the 5 states that use universal vote by mail that is not a member of ERIC. So just putting that out there. At the time when many states are restricting voters' choices, we commend Maine for traditionally being a leader when it comes to empowering voters while maintaining safe and secure elections. We are encouraged by this effort to study an expansion of vote by mail systems and how similar efforts have worked in different states. As we look for ways to promote access and we look for ways to promote turnout, I would certainly encourage the study to take a hard look at Colorado's voter choice model, which many experts consider to be the gold standard of modern voting systems. That voting system has 3 main pillars, one being universal mail of ballots, so all voters are receiving a ballot by mail. Voter choice being the second pillar, so all voters have the choice to either deliver that ballot back by mail or to deliver it back by person. And then finally, access and security. So many pieces of this model are focused on streamlining, on modernizing and securing the voting process from the point of voter registration all the way through to the point where we're counting and curing ballots. As mentioned, while Colorado is the gold standard, Hawaii, Oregon, Utah, and Washington all have universal vote by mail systems. And 5 other states, California, Montana, Nevada, New Jersey, and Vermont, implemented temporary universal vote by mail systems in response to the COVID-19 crisis this past year. Voter fraud in vote systems like this are extremely rare. Colorado has a very secure system due to risk limiting audits, paper ballots, among other policies. And in the 20 years since Oregon implemented their universal vote by mail system, there have only been a dozen documented cases of mail-in ballot fraud. So basically, an American is more likely to be struck by lightning than they are to commit voter fraud. I thank you guys for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Booth. Any questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you, sir, for your testimony this morning. That concludes the list of those signed up to speak in favor. I don't see anybody opposed, but we do have Nadine Bangerter from Rockland, who is listed to speak neither for nor against, so we'll bring in Nadine. Give her a second to get acclimated here.
I think that does it.
Yes, we can hear you and see you. So the floor is yours.
Right,
I'll start
thank
the
you.
clock when you're ready.
All right. Good morning, Senator Lucchini, Representative Chiazzo, and honorable committee members. My name is Nadine Bangeter. I'm a resident of Rockland, Maine. I'm testifying today as a volunteer for the League of Women Voters of Maine, neither for nor against LD 1354. The League has been promoting and defending elections for over 100 years. Vote by mail, VBM, is an election system innovation gaining popularity across the country and worthy of consideration. Apart from our concern that the scope and timeline may overburden the Office of the Secretary of State, we would not object to the proposed study as long as it considers whether VBM is right for Maine, along with LD 1354's questions on how Maine might adopt VBM. A year ago, the League of Women Voters completed its own study of vote by mail, which concluded Maine should protect our current range of voting choices. VBM is convenient, but in-person voting is generally more secure and provides greater opportunity for voter assistance. Significant cost savings appear unlikely for Maine, while best practices may require significant upfront investment. And VBM highlights the benefits of more direct communication with voters. But we still have a lot of questions that a well-constructed study could help answer. Is VBM right for Maine? Can VBM make a significant impact on Maine's voter turnout? Could other measures work as well? Can we keep same-day registration? Will VBM incur costs that are reasonable in relation to its benefits? Due to housing instability, will VBM negatively impact poor communities with already low voter turnout? What will the impact be on municipal elections? Will this present a constitutional issue? To date, Vermont is the first municipal election state likely to pass VBM. All other VBM states run elections at the county level. Vermont's proposed VBM legislation increased Vermont's election budget by $2 million, in part to retain its municipal election sites. The strongest rationale for adopting VBM might be increased voter participation, but the idea is complicated at best since turnout is driven by so many factors. Colorado did indeed have 0.1% higher turnout than Maine. That's about 1,000 Maine voters. But Minnesota's turnout, number one in the US, was 3.6% higher than Colorado. Minnesota and Maine share similar election models, including not having VBM. In fact, voter outreach may constitute the most beneficial component of VBM, more important for voter participation than actual ballots by mail. These rewards might be reaped in Maine without implementing the mailed ballot component. VBM is not a voting option, it is a system-wide election model. By its very nature, it will significantly change how Maine casts votes and how they are counted. If a study is to be undertaken, the League recommends a comprehensive review beyond the procedural, including all election stakeholders, to evaluate VBM's impact on Maine's voting system and civic engagement. Thank you for your consideration. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Bangeter. Any questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you for your testimony this morning. So that concludes the list of pre-registered speakers. If there's anybody in the attendee room wishing to speak on LD 1354, please raise your virtual hand and we'll bring you in and recognize you. All right, seeing none, then we will close the public hearing on LD 1354. Up next, we will open the public hearing on LD 1496, and that is a bill sponsored by our very own Representative Mary Ann Kinney. So Representative Kinney, when you are ready, you have the floor.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Good morning, Senator Lucchini, Representative Chiazzo, and fellow members of the Veterans and Legal Affairs Committee. I am Mary Ann Kinney, and I represent House.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we can hear you, but we can't see you. So if you're okay with that, that's fine. I just wanted to let you know. We don't,
okay. Maybe my video goes off because I have my testimony on my iPad and that's where I'm on Zoom. So that might be the problem.
I just wanted to let you know in case you wanted to be on there. So it's up to you.
I started, let me see. I started my video. I'll come back, but I'll have to go out to be able to read my testimony. But because I can't get my computer to work this morning at the State House. For some reason, it's not connecting to the internet. So I'll go I probably guess I'll be off camera for
We'll
my
have,
testimony.
we've been having issues all morning, so it's not,
Yeah,
you're
it
not
seems to
alone.
be. Yeah, it seems to be an issue. So here I go. So
right.
as long as you can still hear me, I'll go from here.
We can still hear you.
Perfect. So I represent House District 99, which is the towns of Brooks, Burnham, Freedom, Jackson, Knox, Monroe, Thorndike, Troy, and Unity in Waldo County. And I'm here presenting LD 1496, an act to establish the Board of Canvassers for certifying election results. And I'm bringing this bill forward because I had several people mention during the last several election cycles, it's not just this most recent one, that they'd lost most, if not all, confidence in Maine's election process. Whether or not there is an issue with our election process, the people have lost confidence in us. And so this bill is mirrored to an extent on the Board of Canvassers in Michigan State, which has had their Board of Canvassers has been in place since the state's creation of their constitution in 1850. And they've gone through some various changes within theirs, but currently their board is similar to what this bill presents, which puts 4 members with 2 members from each of the 2 parties with the largest number of members within the legislature. And currently that would be 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. And it's to just be able to review the election results as they come in within, I believe, 10 days of the election. And from there, they can look at individual municipalities as far as whether or not there was concerns. And I know part of the issue I had with bringing this forward is I had people in a municipality that didn't think that the election results were quite right. Their counting machine had gone down in the middle of the night. They had to wait for a new flash drive from the Secretary of State's office. And these little things that occur are what is causing the reduction in confidence from the voter. And I've been reading the testimony that's been coming in for this bill, and the voters are weighing in saying this is a great bill because this will put some responsibility back that gives them that confidence that they have lost. So I'd be happy to take any questions at this time. And of course, I will be here for the work session.
I certainly hope so. Thank you, Representative Kinney. Any questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you for introducing the bill for us this morning. First on the list to speak, we don't have anybody listed to speak in favor. First up, we'll have Secretary of State Bellows, and she will be followed by Will Hayward.
Thank you, Representative Chiazzo, Senator Lucchini, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. My name is Shanna Bellows. I am Secretary of State and Chief Elections Officer, speaking today in opposition to LD 1496. Although some states do have a separate board that canvasses or certifies the election results reported by the local election officials, other states, including Maine, give that responsibility to the Secretary of State. This is a significant, albeit ministerial, duty to receive and aggregate the official returns filed by approximately 500 voting jurisdictions into a statewide tabulation of the vote, to be reported to the governor and posted on the Secretary of State's publicly accessible website. From a policy standpoint, it is unclear what value is added by having a partisan board do a second review of the nonpartisan staff's careful tabulation of the vote. I think no one can question the professionalism and dedication of the nonpartisan staff of the Division of Elections who have served prior Secretaries of State, both Republicans and Democrats, with distinction. From an administrative and logistical perspective, it would be impossible, even with substantial overtime, to compress the current process of creating the tabulation from 20 days to 10 days in order to add the time needed for a second review and certification by a partisan board. Attached to this testimony is a summary of Maine's current process for creating the official tabulation of the votes for all offices and ballot questions at a particular election. Please note that for the special Senate District 14 election on March 9th of this year, with only 11 municipalities, all of which finished their tabulator tallies and returns of votes cast before 9 p.m. on election night, the Secretary of State's office was able to complete the official tabulation by the morning of March 10th and communicate a proclamation to the governor for Senator Hickman to be sworn in. However, for state primary and general elections, the Elections Division usually needs all 20 days to complete the statewide tabulation. Remember that during this same period, while some staff are completing the tabulation, others are conducting the central ranked choice voting count or conducting requested recounts. Likewise, a special election for a statewide office or even congressional district with a significant number of municipalities involved would take most, if not all, of the 20 days allotted by law to complete it. The proofreading process alone could take 3 to 4 days. The returns from the November 2020 general election, for example, take up about 3 3-inch binders. If the board is expected to complete a second review of all the municipalities' return of votes cast, comparing the warden's return of votes cast with the clerk's return of votes cast, and proofread the printed tabulation again, it would likely take longer than the 3 to 4 days it takes the experienced election staff to do. Another concern is the ability for 3 or more members of the board to order a recount of all the ballots cast within a specific municipality or within the whole electoral district if, quoting the bill, the members determine that the returns submitted by municipal election officials are not accurate. On what basis would the board make the determination? We have very significant concerns. In the interest of time, I'm going to allow my written testimony to speak to itself with those returns, but I will add that it sounds simple to create a board with 2 members each from the major political parties during the odd number year. But it is likely that there will be 1 or more vacancies or members who are unavailable by the time they're needed to canvass the tabulation of the next general election more than 18 months later. If there is more than 1 vacancy, the board would not have a quorum. What would happen then? Could the election be certified? And what provision will you make? This bill would have to be amended to appoint people to fill the vacancy or vacancies in this proposal. For all of these logistical as well as philosophical reasons, we oppose this bill. I thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Any questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you for your testimony again this morning. Up next, we have Will Hayward.
Good morning.
Good morning again.
Great to see you all again. Morning, Senator Lucchini, Representative Chiazzo, members of the committee. My name is Will Hayward. I'm here today as the Advocacy Program Coordinator, again, for the League of Women Voters of Maine. The League opposes LD 1496. LD 1496 would add an unnecessary and potentially troublesome new step to the process of certifying elections. A board of canvassers would be created to certify election results and submit them to the governor, a duty presently performed by the Secretary of State. Board members would be nominated by members of the Democratic and Republican caucuses. Inevitably, a primary role of the board members would be to watch out for the interests of their respective parties. With 2 members nominated by each party, the 4-person board could end up in stalemate on controversial questions. There's no provision in this bill for resolving a tie vote. Historically, certification of an election has been a mere formality, barely worthy of mention on the evening news. Yet following the 2020 election, some partisan adherents tried to use the certification process as a means to delay or reverse the outcome. 2 members of the Board of Canvassers in Wayne County, Michigan, blocked certification of the presidential vote despite a clear win by one candidate. They later reversed themselves. Lawsuits and political pressure were deployed to block or delay certification at the state and local level around the country. This failed in the end, but it is possible that certification may continue to be a partisan battleground in future elections. LD 1496 would create a bipartisan body of officials with the power to approve or block the certification of election results tabulated by the Secretary of State. The board would also have the power to order recounts. The current certification process is overseen by nonpartisan civil servants. Election results are submitted and attested to by 500 local town clerks, among the most trusted public officials in the state. The Secretary of State compiles and certifies the vote tabulations and prints them for public review. The interests of the parties of the candidates are already protected by various rights, including the right to have observers at the polls or demand a recount. The league has been closely watching Maine's elections for decades, and we can testify that they are well conducted and fair. A board of canvassers is unnecessary at best. We urge the committee to vote ought not to pass, and I would also encourage the committee to pass the post-elections bill, audit bill, LD 1155, as a measure to increase confidence in elections instead. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Hayward. Any questions at this time from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you again for your testimony this morning.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Patty Du Bois from the Maine Clerk Association. She will be speaking neither for nor against.
Again, thank you, Representative Chiazzo.
Good morning again.
Thank you, Senator Lucchini and members of the Veteran and Legal Affairs Committee. As you know, I'm Patty Du Bois. I represent the Maine Towns and City Clerks Association. I live in Winslow. We are neither for nor against LD 1496. Since the establishment of a canvassing board would mostly impact the Secretary of State's office, we didn't feel strongly either way on this bill, but we did note a few things. This bill establishes membership to be based solely on affiliation with one of the major political parties, and we felt that unenrolled members should also be allowed to be members if this were established. Clerks noted that the timing detailed in the bill of reviewing election results 10 days after Election Day would be difficult to meet since returns are still coming into the Secretary of State's office and recounts are still being conducted at that time. Our members felt that the reason for this board to request a recount was not stated and pointed out that inaccurate results from municipalities are already discovered by the Secretary of State's office review. It appears that this board could arbitrarily request a recount if the results are felt to be inaccurate, but fails to state what measure would be used to uncover the inaccuracy. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Ms. Du Bois. Well under the allotted time. Didn't even need to reach for the phone.
Thank you. I'm getting better.
Any questions from the committee? All right, seeing none. Thank you again, Ms. Du Bois, for your testimony this morning.
Thank you.
So that concludes the list of pre-registered speakers for LD 1496. If there's anybody in the attendee room wishing to speak to this bill, please raise your virtual hand and I will recognize you and bring you in. Okay, seeing none, then we will conclude the public hearing for LD 1496. Up next, we will open up the public hearing for LD 1492, which is, let's see, bear with me for a second. There it is. It is an act to provide more choice for Maine consumers in the purchase of spirits. And here to present the bill is our very own, often imitated but never duplicated Senator Farron.
Wow, thank you. I mean, come on, you got to admit, just the title of this bill is pretty cool. Senator Lucchini, Representative Cazzo, and distinguished colleagues of the Veterans and Legal Affairs Committee, I am Senator Brad Farron, and I am pleased to introduce LD 1492, an act to provide more choice for Maine consumers in the purchase of spirits. This session, our committee has made several updates to improve the alcohol landscape for our Maine hospitality and manufacturing businesses. LD 1492 continues this by recognizing the new consumer demands for cocktails to go that are pre-made and packaged, otherwise known as ready to drink, RTD. Innovation is at the center of the production so that these RTDs taste like a real cocktail, even though you may not be physically at a bar. The quality of RTDs and their ingredients are what consumers are requesting, a single drink meant to be enjoyed slowly that has flavor. As beer and wine manufacturers expand their manufacturing footprint into this new production category, they want to remain with their existing distribution partners, the beer and wine wholesalers. Control states are updating their laws to allow the beer and wine distributors to carry the higher ABV spirit RTD products. The bill will allow, hang on just one second, sorry about that. This bill will allow more access and availability for Maine retailers and consumers to have the expanded offerings for these new spirit-based products by making 3 changes to the statute. First, LD 1492 amends the existing low alcohol spirits definition by raising the maximum alcohol level of a low alcohol spirits product from 8% to 15%. Maine already has the low alcohol spirits definition, where products under the 8% ABV are in the beer wine distribution channel. The increased ABV to 15% will accommodate the mixology quality of ingredients to ensure the RTDs taste like a real cocktail in a bottle. The second change in the bill is in response to concerns raised by Bablo regarding the details on the distribution for these low alcohol spirits products. And I'm going to circle back to that before I wrap up. Existing low alcohol spirit products that have an ABV between 8 and 15% will be grandfathered. There will be no disruption in the distribution channel and no confusion with the retailer or consumer as to where these products are sold. For the new products in the 8 to 15% ABV range, the distribution path will be determined by the source of the manufacturer. If the supplier is a certificate of approval for malt liquor or wine, the spirits RTD will be distributed by the wholesalers. If the supplier is a certificate of approval for spirits, the RTD beverage will be under the state distribution system. Any product with an ABV greater than 15% is a spirit product and will be under the Bablo control. The final change is in Section 3 of the bill. This provision was included for clarification by the Office of Reviser of Statutes. There is no provision currently in Title 28A that actually allows low alcohol spirits product manufacture or transport distribution, although it is implied in several different areas. This issue was addressed in the errors bill that the committee worked on last session, but was unfinished at the time of the session adjournment due to the pandemic. The approach in LD 2131 was to include the production of low alcohol spirits in the definitions for brewery and distillery. I will refer to Janet's expertise to guide the committee on which approach is preferred. I thank you for your consideration of LD 1492. And before I open up for questions, I just want to make a couple points. I've got some 1 or 2 other folks in the queue that will answer more of the detailed questions, because those of you that know me that have served on this know there's no way I was that detail orientated and was able to pull all of that stuff out. So yeah, I see the smiling faces. I got you. The other thing I'd really like you to pay attention to and ask questions on is from Bablo itself. We had a couple group holder meetings trying to work through this. This was trying to be very collaborative so that, you know, the last thing we want to do is reduce revenues in the state of Maine. We didn't want to, you know, confuse the liquor laws and the liquor contract. And we really thought we was on a path. We had a couple of collaboration meetings and we changed like Section 2. We put in there specifically to address Bablo's concerns. And we reached out in the last couple of weeks to have some of those conversations to make sure we were still on the right path. And then at the 11th hour yesterday or whatever, we got testimony opposed to it. And I'd be curious to hear that testimony and see how that goes, because we really did try to work together on this. So with that, I will stop yakking and answer any questions that my fellow colleagues may have.
Thank you, Senator Farren. Representative McCready. You're muted, Jay.
I got it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Farren, I just had to say that was the coolest bill number.
You like that?
Yeah.
1492?
Yeah, I would have, you know, how'd you do that? Anyway, I'll listen carefully because this is very complicated. I appreciate your bringing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I missed the opportunity to co-sign that by not paying attention to my emails, because then, you know, you could have had a Christopher on it, which would have been, you know, poetic justice, I'm sure. Any other questions for Senator Farren? All right, seeing none, thank you, Senator, for that introduction. Up first, speaking in favor will be Cheryl Timberlake. We'll bring in Ms. Timberlake. and let her get acclimated for a second. Good morning, Ms. Timberlake. When you are ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Senator Lucchini, Representative Chiazzo, and members of the Veterans and Legal Affairs Committee. I am Cheryl Timberlake, a resident of Mount Vernon and the Executive Vice President for the Maine Beer Wine Distributors Association, here today in support of LD 1492. First of all, let us thank Senator Farron for sponsoring the bill that would expand, as you've heard him testify, the definition of low alcohol spirits and increase access and availability of ready-to-drink products for Maine retailers and Maine consumers. Our members are very excited to have this opportunity, as other states across the country are following a similar fashion, as this is the new way for what consumers are looking for. Maine Beer Wine Distributors asked specifically for this bill to be introduced. Our members have established relationships with beer wine manufacturers, small and large producers, Maine craft brewers, and our local vintners. Many of these produce these low alcohol spirits currently under the 8% ABV threshold. However, with newer innovations, this expanded product category has grown into products that taste much like their predecessors made live and in person at a bar, but with the increased 8% ABV. The distributors very much want to increase these new products into the state, but their suppliers and distributor partners want them to remain in their existing system. As you know from the Committee of Jurisdiction, Maine is a control state. Products at a certain level defined as spirits are under the state system of liquor and lottery. So with the change in this bill, we will be able to allow new introduced products between 8 and 15% low alcohol spirits products to run into the beer distribution channel. Similarly, Maine manufacturers who produce low alcohol spirit products will be able to stay with their distribution partners without the complexities of engaging the state control system and the decisions made by liquor and lottery in terms of posting and pricing. As Senator Farron stated, control states are currently updating their laws to define RTD, low alcohol spirit products, and they allow specifically for beer and wine distributors in their networks to carry them. While many legislative sessions are currently ongoing, several control states have already made this change. They include Iowa, a controlled state that has a 15% ABV canned cocktail law. It's been in place for over a year, and the Department of Regulation in that state actively supported it. Idaho, another control state with a low spirits product definition of 14% ABV. And then finally, Ohio has a mixed beverage definition at 21% ABV. These control states define products and are sold by their beer distributors. In addition, several states are updating them currently. The independent beer distributors would love to have these products and sell to all of our licensed retailers. The original product definition is in the definition currently, which means Maine is a leader. You recognize low alcohol spirits and the distribution channels. I thank you for your consideration of my comments, urge your support of the bill, and would be happy to answer any questions now or at the work session.
Thank you, Ms. Timberlake. Perfect timing.
Thank you.
Any questions from the committee? All right, seeing none. Thank you again for your testimony this morning.
Thank you.
Up next, we will bring in Andrew Hackman. Andrew will be speaking against 1492, and he'll be followed by Director Minio. So, Mr. Hackman, welcome. The floor is yours, sir, when you're ready.
Good morning. I think it's, still morning. Representative Chiazzo, members of the Veterans and Legal Affairs Committee. My name is Andrew Hackman. I am from the town of Union and representing the Distilled Spirits Council. The Distilled Spirits Council are the major manufacturers of spirits products that are currently sold through the state's control system. I want to just state that we are in opposition to this legislation. We are certainly willing to work with Senator Farron and others to discuss the issue and try to get to a position that we could work together. I want to state first off that these products exist now. Discus's members are producing ready-to-drink cocktails, and the products are approved and flowing through the state's control system. Our concerns lie in Section 2 that bifurcates how new products and products that are already in the system will be treated. The difference is a crucial one because it is the potential to shape the market. The beer wholesale channel has 1,600 different retail locations where the products can be sold. The controls channel only has 600 state agency stores. So by creating this bifurcation of who sits in what channels, the potential for those that are in the beer wine channel to have broader market access is one that creates a market advantage. Now, we have had the suggestion that a spirits manufacturer may be able to get a certificate of approval to sit in the beer and wine space. We have not seen clarity that that can happen, and we are unsure if BABLA would grant the same company and the same brand the ability to operate in the beer and wine wholesale channel. So this is certainly an issue for understanding the marketplace. It is unfortunately more complex than probably we've dealt with in a long time, trying to create a bifurcation for the exact same product to go through different channels. Again, our members want to make sure that we have access to equal access to the distribution channel that beer and wine folks do have, and would encourage the committee to think thoughtfully so that we have an equal playing field. And we have certainly been supportive of the state's control status, and a lot of questions before this committee this year with regard to how the contract works and how a control state operates, and would certainly like to be a part of the work session and discussions as we try to find a way to have greater access for consumers. So I'll end there. But again, at this point, we can't support the legislation. Would recommend a ought not to pass report as it stands now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hackman. Any questions from the committee? Representative Kinney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How does Gallows wine and spirits certificate work?
So I'm not familiar. They're not a member of Discus, but I'm assuming that they would be below the 8% current ABV. So they would exist firmly in that beer and wine channel. If they're making a product that is above that, they would potentially have to keep it below the 8% or enter into the spirits contract. But I'm not aware that they are selling a spirits product above the 15%. I'm sorry, above the 8%. It's currently 8%. The bill would change it to 15.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Representative Kinney. Any other questions for Representative Hackman? Sorry, for Mr. Hackman. No, seeing none. Thank you, sir, for your testimony this morning. Up next, we have Director Minio.
Okay, can you see me?
Sir.
Good morning. Can you see me and hear me?
We can see you and hear you. The
All
floor
right.
is yours, sir, when you are ready.
That's a good start. Thank you. Senator Lucchini, who's not here, unfortunately, Representative Caiazzo, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. My name is Greg Minio, and I'm the Director of the Bureau of Alcoholic Beverages and Lottery Operations. And I am providing the following written testimony in opposition to LD 1492. This bill changes the definition of low alcohol spirits products by raising the allowable maximum alcohol by volume from 8% to 15%. This near doubling will make Maine a significant outlier compared to most other control states' low alcohol spirits thresholds. This measure will also expand consumer access to a higher alcohol product. Current law allows for the distribution of low alcohol spirits products of 8% or less to go through the private wholesaler network, and conversely, products above that mark are required to go through the state's listing process and distribution channel, which is limited to the 600 plus licensed agency liquor stores. In turn, under this proposal, the retail network will increase dramatically to 2,400 plus, which includes beer and wine stores. From a fairness perspective, if this bill becomes law, it creates a carve-out to Maine's control model for big beer manufacturers by allowing them to expand into the spirits space and then route their spirits products around the state's listing process, distribution channel, and the agency liquor stores that all other spirits manufacturers are still subject to. And as written, this legislation would allow a reselling agent to sell a spirits-based low alcohol product to an on-premise licensee, This runs afoul of the law in that a reselling agent may only sell a spirits-based product to on-premise licensees if the product is purchased from the state. In addition, this would preclude the state's ability to fully benefit from the growing popularity of the spirits-based ready-to-drink category. According to Nielsen, the spirit-based RTD category is growing at a rate of 140% annually, and new consumers are entering the category at a growth rate of 59%. Maine currently has 143 codes listed that fall into the RTD category, and that number has grown significantly over the last couple of years. And I'll just add that of the 143 codes, most of those are in larger format bottles. Very few are in the cans, which is really what we're talking about. Thank you for allowing me to testify before the committee today, and I'm happy to respond to questions, and of course, we'll be available for the work session. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Minio. Questions from the committee? All right, I had a couple. So I think you answered this already, and I apologize. It sounds like currently any beverage that's above 8% is the threshold now that automatically goes into the spirits category. Is that correct?
Spirits.
Okay.
Spirits,
so
right?
That threshold is already set at 8%, and this would actually be bumping that to 15.
It's set at above 8%, it would go to 15. That's correct. That's what this bill proposes. That's right.
Okay. So if we were to make those adjustments, how difficult would it be? Let's assume that we move that up. How difficult would it be to reclassify the spirits producers into that other distribution chain?
How difficult would it be? You mean, for example, Anheuser-Busch?
No. I'm going the other way. I'm saying, let's say we've got a distiller in Maine who is making a beverage that's at 9%, right?
Right.
And we elevate that level to 15%. Would we be able to put that distiller into the beer and wine category then and allow them a different distribution channel? Or are they locked in because of the licensing that they currently have?
Well, it's not necessarily the licensing. They have to go through the listing process. It would have to be proposed for listing.
Okay. So a process would exist. They would just need to follow that separate process.
Yeah, this is not so much about process. This is about availability and access, where we're going from 600 stores to 2,400, 2,500 stores.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Director. Representative Kane.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director Minio, for being here. I have questions. I've been to various breweries that are also restaurants, and they have their alcohol, the ABV for some of their malt beverages. I can think of, I don't remember exactly which one I had gone to, but their porter was at 9% ABV. So I don't know if they bottle it. That may be the difference, that they're only serving it in the restaurant. But it's a malt beverage. It's a beer product, not a
right. That's different.
Spirit. So is there a different rule for that product, even though the ABV is 9%?
Well, this bill's about a spirits product going from 8+ to 15. So yeah, there's the ability of a manufacturer to make their own products, and a malt is definitely very different from the spirit-based products. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Representative Kinney. Any other questions for the director? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Director, for your testimony. We look forward to seeing you at the work session.
Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes the pre-registered lists for LD 1492. Anybody in the attendee room that wishes to testify on this bill, please raise your virtual hand and we will bring you in and recognize you. Okay, seeing none, then we will close the public hearing on LD 1492. Up next, last on our list this morning for public hearing, or this afternoon now, excuse me, is LD 1495, which is an act to help veterans who are caregivers of children with special needs and of family members to optimize their respite hours. And this bill will be introduced by Representative Andrews. And so he is now in. Representative Andrews, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. And the floor is yours, sir, when you are ready to kick it off. Oh, sorry, Representative, you're still muted.
There we go.
Perfect.
Senator Lucchini, Representative Chiazzo, and honorable members of the Veterans and Legal Affairs Committee. My name is John Andrews, and I represent the towns of Buckfield, Hebron, and Paris that make up District 73 in the foothills of Western Maine. I am here to testify in favor of LD 1495, an act to help veterans who are caregivers of children with special needs and of family members to optimize their respite hours. This summer, I was approached by a veteran named Douglas Seckinger from Norway, Maine, who was looking for help. Douglas is 100% disabled veteran with severe PTSD who is a caregiver for his fiance and 2 children. He helps his fiance with essential hemodialysis 5 days a week, with each treatment taking up to 5 hours. His 2 children have autism and ADHD. They qualify for 26 hours of respite care per month. Douglas selflessly uses those respite hours for his fiance's dialysis treatment. He does not use the respite hours for himself, and often they are not enough to cover the time spent for the dialysis treatments, causing him to pay out of pocket. This is an economic burden that is hard to bear. Respite hours are meant to give the caregiver a break from caregiving to rest and recharge for their duties. LD 1495 seeks to help veterans who are in similar circumstances as Mr. Seckinger by having the Maine Bureau of Veteran Services coordinate and help to navigate federal programs. It would also seek to see if any new benefits or programs have been developed since 2010's Caregiver and Veterans Omnibus Health Services Act that can be implemented in Maine. The Director of Veteran Services and his staff do an outstanding job for veterans in this state. We are lucky to have them. I'm hopeful that this bill might serve as a catalyst to shed light on an opportunity to aid Mr. Seckinger and other veterans like him as he continues to serve the needs of his family. Adapting programs to specifically target these specialty needs of veteran caregivers and coordinating with strategic partners across the state who can help will be immensely beneficial to veterans in this position who are struggling. Douglas will be testifying after me today, and he can explain his situation better than anyone else. I would urge you to listen to his story and think of any and all ways to help selfless veterans like him with this bill. I'm very hopeful that in the work session, this committee can work together to make this the best product possible to help all of our veterans who are also caregivers. Thank you for your time and dedication to public service.
Thank you, Representative Andrews. Any questions from the committee members? Senator Farren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Andrews, for bringing this to our attention. This committee has worked very hard this session to look at the Bureau of Veteran Services as far as from a staffing standpoint, right? We've talked about homeless veterans where we've gotten behind making a pilot program and permanent program for mental health issues and supporting 2 more VSO officers. And I'm very anxious to hear the testimony following you, but just in the right up front right now, this really seems like that hands-on VSO, that's what our VSO should be doing and how we steer through that thing. And do you think that that's by raising this light, that's a way that we can do that, without having necessarily to have legislation?
I mean, ideally, the pieces would be in place, and we just have to move them around, to optimize what we need in 2021 for situations like this. I have absolute faith in Director Richmond, to do the best job possible. He's been amazing when I was on VLA. And I think there's a lot of smart people on this committee. If you guys put your heads together with Director Richmond, I think good things can happen.
Okay, thank you so much for bringing this forward. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Farren. Representative McCrate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Andrews, we don't get to sit next to each other anymore. But I guess since we're not in person, we wouldn't anyway.
True.
We were seatmates on VLA. Just so I understand, I'm familiar with respite programs from having been a social worker sort of person. Are you talking about the Bureau to make sure that veterans are aware of all of those services that are out there, or are you talking about something that's would be within the veteran services? I'm just needing a little clarification. Thanks.
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, the purpose of this bill is to help people that are in the same situation as Mr. Seckinger know exactly what's out there, how to access it, and use it fully. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative McCray. Any other questions for Representative Andrews? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Representative, for kicking the bill off. We appreciate your time this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Up next, we will bring in Mr. Seckinger. He is on the list to speak in favor. Give him a second to come in and get acclimated. All right, Mr. Seckinger, we can see you and you're off mute. So, sir, the floor is yours when you are ready.
All right. 3 minutes starts now. My name is Douglas Seckinger. As Representative Andrews said, I am a combat veteran. I want to first take the time to thank the committee for taking the time to hear me. I do suffer from severe PTSD, which has put my disability rating over 100%. I also provide life-saving treatment for my wife. As you guys can see, I have medical equipment, I have centrifuges, I have a special chair for any kind of, I maintain medical supplies in the home. And this is part of my day-to-day life. My 3 children, 2 of which are autistic and have ADHD, all diagnosed. My 3rd one is a toddler, which adds its own fun and stress. I have contacted every agency that provides respite care throughout the state of Maine and throughout the country to try to see if there was a possibility of getting more respite services than were currently allowed. Right now, my respite provider is through NAMI. We are qualified and certified for 26 hours a month. Now that's for both of my children. My respite provider works anywhere between 80 and 120 hours a month. So I'm having to pick up the cost of anywhere between 60 and 80 hours of respite time. So my proposal to Representative Andrews with all of this, and I will read my prepared remarks wherever y'all went. Jeez, there you are. Come on, open up. There we are. I am a 100% disabled veteran, 100% disabled service-connected combat veteran with severe PTSD. I provide life-saving hemodialysis to my fiance 5 days a week, 5 hours per treatment. I have 2 kiddos with autism and ADHD living in the home who qualify for 26 total hours a month of respite care. I have chosen to utilize the respite care to provide treatment to my fiance. I use up my respite hours within 6 treatment sessions and I'm having to pay out of pocket, which is causing hardship due to my fixed income. The purpose of this bill, in my mind, would be to ensure veterans who have children with special needs receive necessary support and funding for respite services by creating a bridge between state and VA resources. Number 2, ensure veterans who are also caregivers who are caring for non-veterans receive any and all additional resources and support offered through the various caregiver programs at the VA and adapt programs to include non-patient veterans who are acting in a caregiver role for their non-veteran spouse, significant others. And the third goal, or the third bullet point on that, is to ensure the VA works with veterans, their families, and any associated professionals, doctors, therapists, schools, to ensure veteran and family are properly cared for by adapting current programs at the VA to include vets and children with special needs. And I will now open the floor up for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Seckinger. Any questions from the committee? Senator Farron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for your service and reaching out to Representative Andrews and bringing this forward. One of the questions, that I have that we all try to balance here on VLA is the difference between what our main Bureau of Veteran Services can provide for support and what is the VA's responsibility. And obviously, you've talked with Mr. Richmond and others. Have you also had any conversations with the federal delegation about what resources or how this implies? You talked about that bridge between federal and state. I just wonder if any response from that.
I have actually spoken with Senator Collins, Senator King, and Representative Golden's offices. We did a big joint meeting with all three offices and representatives from their offices. And there are no programs federally that exist. So their idea was pass it down to the state level. Let's see how we can get it done at the state level. And then what they want to do is once if it is approved, passed, they want to take that, the framework that is done at the state level and adapt it to the federal level. So the state is kind of setting the model, and then the federal is going to take over and do the adaptation to the federal level and make it a bigger scale project.
Gotcha. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you, Mr. Seconder, for your testimony. We very much appreciate that.
Thank you for hearing me, and thank you for your time.
Up next, we will have Director Richmond. And Director Richmond is speaking neither for nor against. So Director, when you are ready, sir.
Morning, Representative Chiazzo and honorable members of the Veterans and Legal Affairs Committee. My name is David Richmond, and I'm the Director of the Maine Bureau of Veteran Services. I'm here today to testify neither for nor against LD 1495, an act to help veterans who are caregivers of children with special needs and of family members to optimize their respite hours. Among our Bureau's statutory missions is the mission of serving as the primary source of information for veterans in the state regarding all services, benefits, and honors administered by the state, and to the maximum extent possible, services and benefits provided by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs, veteran service organizations, and other organizations dedicated to serving veterans, as outlined in our state law 37B. Our veteran service officers are the Bureau's primary information conduit for veterans and their families searching for resources. They are already trained and can advise veterans and their families on situations in which the VA will provide assistance to veterans' dependents. They are familiar with many services available through DHHS, and at a minimum, know who to refer to. Each veteran's experience and needs are unique, and the Bureau strives to customize their service that we provide to each veteran that we serve. The Bureau also keeps an updated copy of the Maine Veterans Resource Guide, along with the searchable resource locator, both of which are located on the Bureau's website. We administer the Veterans Emergency Financial Assistance Program, which can help veterans with life emergencies that they may encounter. We're also always on the lookout for state, federal, and local resources that we can connect veterans to. And we'll be happy to look into any additional services that may be available for veteran parents of children with special needs. I thank you for hearing this testimony, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Director Richmond. Representative Tuttle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David, had you been aware of this case prior to the public hearing?
Not specifically this case, Representative Tuttle.
Yeah, because I, being a veteran myself, I'm sort of concerned that some veterans get stuck and unable to address their situation. So I'm sort of surprised that the federal folks had said, let's see what the state does and take it from there. But I think that if we could try to intervene for this person, I think from at least my perspective, I think it'd be the right thing to do. And I'm hoping we can get clarity before the work session. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Tuttle. Representative McCray?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director Richmond. Could you talk a little bit more about the financial assistance program? This particular situation is someone who has the need for more services than they are covered for. Is that something, I assume the financial assistance depends on somebody's income level as well as need. Am I on the right track?
You are, Representative. There's a bunch of factors that weigh into it. So we have 2 vendors who we've hired to administer our VFAP program. And they are American Legion and Easter Seals. And they each have an application that's very similar. And there is a component in there that measures a veteran's means, what they have in income and what they have for expenses and liabilities. And that's taken into account. But as I read the statute, the intent of it is that if a veteran is facing a situation that they cannot, an urgent situation that they cannot solve on their own, that is also a large factor. So in the case of the veteran that we heard this morning, if even if they had an income that was sufficient, if their expenses were as he described, and they were not able to cover an emergent need, which I heard today definitely qualifies, we would be able to leverage that program.
A follow-up, Mr. Chair?
Please.
Thank you for that. And now that you've said it, I remember Easter Seals and American Legion. Thank you. So it would be possible that a chronic situation could be helped as well as a crisis, one-time crisis. Also, I'm very much aware that we don't have enough respite services available to people by any stretch of the imagination. There are people on wait lists who aren't getting any. So that's a systemic problem that the Veteran Services isn't able to fix. It's one that certainly is DHHS is hearing all about. But it sounds like in this particular situation, which, I mean, we're talking about a broader than one person situation, but in this particular person situation, I'm just amazed and thrilled that he's able to get more respite service than is paid for. So then it does go to the financial assistance issue, the issue about more respite. And the VSOs connect to services, but if the services don't exist, they can't connect to them. But the Bureau can speak out and say, we need a whole lot more than we're getting in the state and support. I'm not suggesting what you should say, but as this has come up, it's not just a veterans issue, but it is a veterans issue. So we need more respite in the state is what I'm getting at. And I'm glad to know more about the emergency financial assistance program. Thanks. I don't know if that was a question.
It wasn't, Representative McCray, but I gave you the floor. So it was worth hearing for sure. Okay, so any other questions for Director Richmond? I've got a quick question. It struck me as kind of odd that there's the political response of let's let the states do it. Are you aware of any DoD programs that they've reached out to try and pilot, to try and engage us on along these lines? Or was that just I don't be careful how I phrase this, was that just the political response to the concern?
Well, thanks for the question, Representative Chiazzo. To answer it, I don't know what response was given to the veteran and what their official stance is, but I do know that there are certain cases where the VA will provide respite and they will provide dependent care for veterans, for instance, who were affected by Agent Orange, or if they were affected by the water at Camp Lejeune, and if their dependents were also affected by that service-connected injury. There are certain cases where the VA will help. It sounds like our veteran this morning may have some of that assistance. In addition to that, our Director of Strategic Partnerships, I asked her to reach out and do some pre-homework on this bill to look for other resources that may be available, federal and state and local resource. And we have 3 pages of links and possibilities that I'm sure the veteran this morning has tried some, but there may be something on there that he may not yet be aware of. And I'm eager to be connected with him so that I can share what we found and also get an application going for VFAP.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that. Any other questions for Director Richmond while we have him? All right, seeing none. Thank you, sir, as always, for your testimony.
Thank you all.
Always good to see you. So that concludes those signed up for testimony for LD 1495. If there is anyone in the attendee room who wishes to speak on this bill, please raise your virtual hand and we will bring you in and recognize you. All right, seeing none, then we will close the public hearing on LD 1495. Feel like David Letterman, right? He would do that and just throw it off there. Representative Tuttle.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Darlene Simino. Now, Darlene was our committee clerk a few years ago. Darlene, is that correct?
A long time ago in labor.
Yeah, in labor. Okay, I got
Yeah,
my
I
committees
fill
mixed.
in once in a while.
All right, well, good to see you again.
Thank you.
So we have one last thing on our agenda for today, LD 714, a work session for LD 714. And Janet, I'll look to you to see if, are you ready to do the presentation?
I am, but it's listed for 1 o'clock.
So we have to wait until 1 o'clock anyway. I'm looking at an old calendar, sorry. Well, then that answers the question of whether we're going to go right through or whether we'll take a break. So Representative Wood, did you have a question?
Well, I just texted Representative Peirce, excuse me, and she said she could come anytime, but I wasn't thinking there'd be other people that might want to come also.
Yeah, once it's advertised, we can't go early. Right, Senator Farron, unfortunately.
I know, I asked.
So in that case, we will take a recess until 1 o'clock. If I don't think we have, you can caucus, grab a bite, do your bio break, whatever you need to do. From the Dems perspective, I don't think we need a caucus, but certainly if somebody wants one, then shoot me a text and we'll do a link. If you do leave the meeting, you can come back in on the same link from this morning. And just a reminder, it's getting nice out there. So we do not need a quorum to start back up again, but if we do decide to vote, we will need a quorum and a senator, Senator Farron, unless you're running out the door. Just a gentle reminder for that.
I just disappear, so you have to ask for me. That's all.
I know how to find you.
Isn't that a song, Ain't Too Proud to Beg? Representative Carr.
I'm going to be in and out this afternoon. I'm in AFA, and then I also have a bill I'm presenting at criminal justice. So I'm not sure what's going on. But if we wrap it up early, then was there a lot to? Well, we can't even discuss the bill. But anyways, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, hopefully the chair of AFA will cut you loose to help work her bill, but we'll see. We'll see. All right. If there's no other questions or comments, then we will be in recess until 1 o'clock, and we will come back for a work session at 1. So we'll see you all then. Thank you. And just a reminder for those doing on, please mute yourself and take yourself off video, please. Thank you. All right. Good afternoon, folks. I think we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We get enough people back so we can start the afternoon festivities. So we are back for a work session on LD 714. Let me open up the notes. I'm supposed to give some instructions. All right, so good afternoon. I'm Representative Chris Chiazzo, presiding over the work session of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. The purpose of this meeting is for the committee to receive information from staff and others in order for members to consider the legislative proposals before them and make recommendation or reports to the legislature. Only committee members, the committee analysts, and those specifically invited to attend will be participating in the work session using Zoom. For members of the public wishing to observe this meeting, it is being live streamed on the community's YouTube channel, the committee's YouTube channel, and will also be recorded for viewing after the meeting is concluded. We are also broadcasting the audio of this meeting on the legislative website. The YouTube live stream for this meeting, which is accessible to the public, is already running and remain on until the end of the work session today. If your video or audio is on, even if the committee is not, then in active session or is on break, the public can see and hear you. This is a public meeting. While we're meeting, discussion must happen on screen and not by way of the Zoom chat. You may use the chat to request to speak or to indicate that you are having a technical issue or to indicate that you are momentarily stepping away from the screen. However, again, you are not to use the chat feature for substantive discussions. If you're having technical difficulties, please contact Darlene, who can try and help you resolve the problems, or contact the Legislative Information Technical Officer if necessary. You guys know the rules for how we run the work session, so please wait to be called upon. Materials we provide electronically for the session, either through the screen share, email, or posted in the committee materials page before the meeting or soon after. When it comes time for the committee to vote, if we vote today, we must have a quorum present, which is at least 7 members, including a senator. In order to be counted as present, your identity must be visually verifiable on the Zoom screen. So, having said that, we'll open up the work session for LD 714. And Janet, if you are ready, then you can take it away.
Certainly. Am I not muted for once?
You are not muted.
Excellent.
And my speakers are on, so I can hear you.
Even better. So LD 714, as you mentioned, is an act to support the recovery of Maine's craft spirits industry. It was originally printed as a concept draft that proposed to support the recovery of the state's craft spirits industry by permitting distilleries to sell directly to customers and by providing for contactless sales and fulfillment of orders. At the public hearing, the sponsor proposed replacing the concept draft with statutory language that would temporarily permit through September 10th, 2022, a licensed Maine distillery or small distillery to sell for on-premises consumption cocktails containing samples of its spirits products. These sales would be authorized at a tasting room operated at the manufacturing facility or at a separate location for which the distillery or small distillery is licensed to sell its products for off-premises consumption under the following conditions. And I did put the language of the sponsor's proposed amendment there, but I think it's better to go through it on the next page. So I'm just going to skip that part, other than to mention that she did also propose adding an emergency preamble, and she included the amendment directly in her testimony, which is available through that link. The sponsor did explain that her proposed amendment would enable licensed Maine distilleries and small distilleries to sell for on-premises consumption the same types of cocktails that they were recently authorized to sell for off-premises consumption through LD 205, which came through this committee earlier this year and which was enacted and signed into law and became effective on March 17th. So as a comparison to the two, both LD 205 and the sponsor's amendment to this bill would affect the same distilleries and small distilleries that operate tasting rooms. Tasting rooms aren't listed anywhere in the statute, but they're basically places where they provide samples of their products that they're going to sell for off-premises consumption. So, and they're authorized by law to provide those samples, as you can see on the next page of the bill analysis. So under LD 205, which has already been enacted, those were cocktails for off-premises consumption that had to contain less than 4.5 ounces of spirits. They couldn't contain any wine or spirits that the distillery itself did not produce unless those wine or spirits products were purchased from an agency liquor store, which has a reselling agent license. And under LD 205, they had to be sold and served by employees over age 21 or age 17 to 20 in the presence of a supervisor over 21 years of age. That latter requirement wasn't directly printed in LD 205, but it does exist in current law. And as you can see, the sponsor's proposed amendment would mirror all of these same requirements for the cocktails. They would just now be sold for on-premises consumption. Slightly differently than LD 205, the sponsor's amendment to this bill does specifically state that the cocktail has to contain a sample of the distillery's own spirits. I think that was sort of understood to be true in LD 205. I think at one point somebody said they probably wouldn't want to sell cocktails that didn't contain their own spirits because that's not a good business model, something along those lines. Because LD 205 included cocktails for off-premises consumption, I'm assuming that's why some of the other requirements aren't mirrored in the amendment before you today. So on LD 205, the cocktails had to be sealed in a tamper-proof approved container. It had to be labeled and have the ingredients listed and certain types of information that the Bureau thought would be helpful to include in the label. And it had to be prepared on the day of sale by an employee who again was over 21 years of age or a younger employee in the presence of a supervisor over 21 years of age. So those aren't specifically required by the amendment before you, but again, that's a cocktail for on-premises consumption, so that may or may not make a difference for you. As far as delivery restrictions under LD 205, remember those are off-premises sales. They couldn't be sold or delivered to someone who's visibly intoxicated. There had to be proof of ID for the person receiving the cocktail that they were over 21 years of age using a photo ID that had their name and date of birth. And if it was delivered by an employee to a customer at a remote location, that person had to be over 21 years of age, and there had to be a time-stamped sales receipt. So the amendment before you, which again, these are just going to be on-premises sales, so they had to be consumed on premises. They still include the restrictions on serving someone who's visibly intoxicated and the requirement that already exists in current law that whenever you sell, furnish, give, or deliver liquor to someone who is less than 27 years of age, you need to have a photo ID with their date of birth to prove that they're over 21 years of age as required by law. LD 205, which involves the off-premises sales, requires advance notice to the Bureau that those sales will take place. There isn't a similar requirement in the amendment before you. Sorry, I'm just looking at all of my handouts that I have on my desk too. There's an emergency preamble in both LD 205 and the amendment before you, and they would both sunset on the same date. As far as the current authority and why do you need this bill, you may be wondering. Right now, under current law, if you're a distillery or small distillery licensed in the state, you do have authority to sell your own products for off-premises consumption, both at your manufacturing facility and at up to 2 additional locations if you get an additional license for those. At those locations, both your manufacturing facility and any licensed off-premises location, you do have authority as a licensed distillery or small distillery to sell or provide complimentary samples of your own products. But this sampling authority does not include the ability to mix those into a cocktail You might be able to mix it with something that's not alcoholic, that's not usually discussed, but the problem is that you don't have any authority as a distillery or a small distillery to sell anyone else's liquor products if all you have is a license for off-premises sales. And that off-premises authority is sort of built into the distillery's license for its own manufacturing facility. You can, as a distillery or a small distillery, get a separate license for on-premises sales. You would get a license that any other restaurant or hotel or what have you might apply for, and it is specifically provided for that the distillery or the small distillery is eligible to get that license. You'd have to pay the separate fee for the Chapter 43 license, and that license would then control whatever types of products you would be able to sell for on-premises consumption at your manufacturing facility or a connected location. Because we are talking about distilleries and small distilleries, and Maine is a control state, as you heard this morning and multiple times last Friday. Even when selling at products at its own facility or through the Chapter 43 license that it obtains, or at the 2 additional off-premises locations that the distillery or small distillery is authorized to obtain a license for. Because we are a control state, the law does require that those spirits products first be sold to and then purchased back from the state before being sold, whether it's for on-premises or off-premises consumption. There is an exception for the small distilleries, but only as far as actually sending the spirits products through the distribution system. They can retain the spirits products at the manufacturing facility, but they do still technically have to sell them to the state and purchase them back. So the way that works is they're directed by statute to send the state the difference in price between what they charge the state for their products and then what the state charges them to purchase the products back, but they don't have to actually send the bottle. So that's the current system. And as you can see, again, sampling doesn't include mixing your own spirits if you're a distillery with some other types of alcohol, and on-premises sales, which you could get a license for and then be able to sell cocktails, but you do have to get that separate license. And I think the bill sponsor was saying for some distilleries that just want to give their products mixed into a cocktail as a sample so that they can convince the customer to buy them for off-premises consumption, they want to have this authority similar to what you gave for off-premises sales earlier this year, to mix them and then provide the customer with a sample and maybe convince them to buy the bottle later. I think that's basically what was provided for you at the hearing.
Excellent. Thank you, Janet. Representative McCrate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Janet. Can you go to the chart just for a second?
Certainly.
I just have a tiny question.
It could be a mistake in the chart, so let's see.
Oh, I'm sure it isn't. I a little bit further down, I keep trying to do it myself and I can't. Delivery restrictions. If the may not sell, furnish, give, or deliver a cocktail to a person less than 27, is that current? Because I just hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, this is current law. So
look, you're so good.
That's why I link it, makes it easier for me. So if someone is under 27 years of age and you're a licensee under Title 28A, which is the liquor laws, then you need to make sure you verify that they're not a minor by means of reliable photographic identification containing the person's date of birth. And I will point out that Hannaford no longer asks me to show an ID, which is very depressing. That means I don't look under 27 anymore.
Well, I was going to say I should be flattered when I was asked when I was 40 something, right?
Very, very true. I am 40 something and not being asked.
Thank you.
I have a correction for both of those. If you go into Hannaford wearing a mask, they will ask you for your ID, and if you don't have it, they will refuse you. No matter how much gray hair you have, they won't let you do it. So, and that's from a direct experience.
Did you refuse to show him an ID, Representative Chiazzo?
Well, they actually, I gave them an ID and they wanted me to take my mask off so that they could confirm it was me. And I just said, you know, I'm good, fine. It was personal preference. It's personal preference.
You forewent the beer in order to.
I sent my wife in, who obviously looks much younger than I do, and they didn't. She had no issues. Sorry, Representative McCrate. We were jumping all over your questions there. Are you all set with Janet? All right, thank you. Any other questions for Janet? All right, seeing none. We do have Director Minio is here, and I noticed that Bablo didn't see any testimony from them. So Director Minio, if you are available, I would appreciate you jumping in and letting us know if you have any concerns or questions about this particular bill.
Well, of course, as usual, Janet did an amazing job recapping all this. We thank her for that. Very diligent and comprehensive. I would just remind committee that what is being proposed essentially is to, for all intents and purposes, to convert the manufacturer's privileges for on-premise consumption to be something very similar to a bar. That's what it becomes, a Class A lounge, essentially, with all the trappings that go along with it. So we just ask the committee to consider that. And that is not necessarily something that was part of the license application when they did request to become a manufacturer. As Janet mentioned, there's 3 privileges. It's to manufacture, is to sell for off-premise usage, and also is to sample. So just want to remind the committee that that's exactly what would happen here, that this would they become a Class A lounge or a bar, which is not necessarily a term in our statutes, but I think we all know what a bar is. So I just want to mention that. And also one last thing, that anything that would pass through the vetting of the state, of course, would also be susceptible to municipal approval, like anything else. Just wanted to remind the committee of that as well. And that goes with any liquor license per se, certainly for on-premise, it does. So that's really what I had to offer on that. Yeah, we've got some concerns. There are some issues with this, but this is the will of the committee, and we'll certainly abide by them and enforce the laws as appropriately. But they do have the ability, with municipal approval, these manufacturers have the ability to apply for, as Janet mentioned, a Chapter 43 license. They may do that, and then they may sell any spirit product, just like any other bar in Maine. That's what I had to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Minio. Discussion? Questions? Representative Tuttle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If it's in order, I would move ought to pass as amended, if that would be the correct motion, Mr. Chair.
That certainly would be the correct motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconds by Representative McCrate. So moved by Representative Tuttle, seconded by McCrate. Any further discussion? Representative McCrate.
Thank you. A question for Director Minio. Could you just expand a little bit? They would function like a Class A lounge. Can you say more about what that means?
Well, they would not function in the sense of licensure, but they would function in the sense of operation. They would have the privileges, for the most part, of a Class A lounge. The ability to serve to the public for on-premise consumption, mixed beverages, to make cocktails. The only stipulation that I see in this bill is that they have to use something in the drink, has to be one of the products that they manufacture. But otherwise, and I don't think that would be very difficult for their purposes. The only reason I bring this up, Representative, is that we go back to why this is the case with LD 205, which was an extension, rightfully so, of the executive order and our guidance memos. something that the Bureau supported, and we were definitely in favor of it. This is a pivot, and we're taking those allowances now, and the committee would be saying that you may do the same thing for on-premise. There was reasons for the cocktails to go. We fully supported that. We look at this as something somewhat different, but we defer to the wisdom of the committee, but we just wanted you to hear the way we see it. That's all.
Thank you. Follow up, Mr.
Yes,
Chair?
Sure.
Just a very important point is that the sunsets like 205. So it's a temporary measure. And once if this passes and sunsets, then it would go, they could apply, as you just said a few minutes ago, for another license. This gives them the privileges of that, but it will disappear if this passes and sunsets.
That's correct. And of course, they may also apply in the meantime too. I don't know why they would. They may want to for different reasons. They may want to apply for a Class A restaurant. They may want to do something different. They may want to offer food. There's other things they may want to do if they change their business model. But yes, you are correct in the way you stated it.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you, Representative McCrate. Any other discussion or question? Yeah, I mean, I'll just add my 2 cents. I certainly, understand Director Minio's concerns, and I think if this were going to be permanent, I think we would probably want to look at that a lot differently. I think that it's, in my mind, we've authorized in 205, we've authorized the facility to allow a cocktail to go, but they can't have the same thing while you're sitting there. So in essence, you'd have to try that. You can make it, put it in a container and seal it and send it home with them, but they can't sit there in the facility and drink, have the same cocktail. So I think the sunset is a big thing for me as well. For Representative McCrate, we'll give it a try, see how it goes. Come September, if it's not working out, then we'll be able to adjust accordingly. And if it is working out, we'll be back here again for to review it and see if we want another statute or if we want to take a different route. So. I appreciate the concerns. I think they're genuine, but I think in this instance, it's short term and for just simplicity purposes, it seems like it aligns the operations up a little bit more smoothly. So I certainly will be supporting the amendment, the ought to pass motion for sure. Representative Kinney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make sure that the ought to pass had an emergency preamble. I know that was something that was requested. I'm following this, but great. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Representative Dolph.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I also want to thank you for expressing how you feel about this bill, because I feel the same way. If it was long-term, we'd probably look into it further, have a lot more discussion, but where it is temporary. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Dolph. Any other questions or comments? All right, so we have a motion on the floor, ought to pass as amended. It was motioned by Representative Tuttle, seconded by Representative McCrate.
Is this when we need to beg Senator Farron to come back? Okay.
Yes, we do. Thank you for that reminder. He's here, or he's virtually here, I guess. Let me see if I can spur him to turn his video on.
Mr. Chair, have him paged.
If I were Speaker Martin, I could send the police after him, the state police, but I don't have nearly that authority, right?
Well, that's another story, Mr. Chair.
He's just texted me back 2 minutes.
Okay.
For Senator Farron.
All right. So maybe Representative Tuttle, you could indulge us with that story.
Well, my freshman year, we were tied in the minimum wage bill. And we had a representative from Jay who was undecided and decided not to vote on it. So Speaker Martin sent the state troopers out to bring the individual back. And he brought him back in his pajamas and he voted. And that's how we passed the minimum wage. Now, I was recalling that with Representative Martin. He says, John, he did not have his pajamas on. And I said, John, I've got a good memory. He did. Right, Representative Corey? Yeah.
I was thinking maybe we could have a pajama day in the chamber. Joking.
How about on
Pajama-
Zoom, Pat? How about on
Pajama
Zoom?
day instead of color day.
Yeah.
I don't.
All right. Well,
I don't know how
think-
I feel
think-
about sending the police out after people. Though that's a little.
I think we're going down a rabbit hole. We probably should stop. Senator Farron's here now to rescue us. So, Senator Farron, the motion on the floor is ought to pass as amended. It was motioned by Representative Tuttle, seconded by Representative McCray. So, are you comfortable with us proceeding with the vote, or did you have questions or concerns?
I am comfortable.
All right, then, Darlene, when you are ready, please, if you could call the roll.
Can you guys hear me now?
We can hear you now, yes.
All right, okay. Senator Farron,
Yes.
Representative Ciazza,
Yes.
Representative McCrae,
Yes.
Representative Tuttle,
Yes.
Representative Riley,
Yes.
Representative Supika,
Yes.
Representative Wood,
Yes.
Representative Kinning,
Yes.
Representative Harrington,
Yes.
Representative Corey,
Yes.
Representative Dolph,
Yes.
and Senator Lucchini is absent and Senator Dashenbold absent. So we have 11 in the affirmative.
It's actually Hickman now. We swapped,
Ah.
senators.
That's
Yes.
right, too.
Yes.
We'll change that. Okay, Senator Hickman, absent. 11 in the
so-
affirmative, two missing.
All right, that's what I have too. So the motion ought to pass as amendment is successful. Those who were absent have 2 days to cast their vote with the clerk and may do so after. So that concludes the work session for LD 714. Representative Tuttle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is pretty much going to be it for today, Chris. If we just have this one, do we have anything else going?
Well, sir, you beat me to the punch because I always have to check in with the boss first to see if Janet has anything left for us. Otherwise,
Right, Janet?
she's given us the
All right.
thumbs up. So we have concluded committee for the day.
Well, one more thing, Mr. Chair, one last story, being an old Irishman, I've got to do this. Now, most of you know I'm rebuilding my greenhouse in my backyard. The problem is I did it over the internet, and the one that they delivered is not the one I ordered. So I'm going to have to get Representative Corey to help me bring it back and get rid of it. Is that okay, Representative Corey?
I think he
He's
heard
not
you,
here.
Representative Tuttle, and then he left.
Well, it's like other people that know me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Tuttle. If there's no other questions or comments, we are meeting again on Friday morning, 9 a.m. For some public hearings we've got scheduled as well. So thank you, everybody, for your work today. I appreciate it. It went relatively smooth today without a few technical hiccups. So I will work on my scheduling for Senator Farron stuff and make sure that I always put that at the front of the list moving forward. So thanks, folks. Have a great afternoon and a good Thursday, and we will see you all Friday morning.